So imagine walking out into your backyard, right? And you just speak out loud. You say, I want a floating lake cabin that looks exactly like my grandparents' old house, but, I want it to run completely on ambient solar energy.
Right, just talking to the air.
Literally just talking to the air. And then by tomorrow morning, a swarm of automated fabricators has actually built it, like right there on the water,
Yeah.
out of recycled polymers, locally sourced atoms, and it costs you about the same as, I don't know, a cup of coffee.
I mean, it sounds like pure science fiction.
Yeah.
Right, like some utopian fantasy movie.
Okay.
But if you look really closely at the economic models and this technological convergence happening literal right now, that scenario isn't magic.
Right.
It is the highly probable reality of your life in, honestly, less than a decade.
Less than a decade. That is insane to think about. And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive today. We are looking at a civilizational phase change that's slated to arrive by the early 2030s.
Yeah, it's coming fast.
Really fast. So to do this, we're unpacking a fascinating stack of writings from the Netizen blog. Specifically, some incredibly detailed analyses published on March 15th and 16th, 2026, authored by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
And these posts are just incredibly dense with foresight.
They really are. The goal here is to equip you, the listener, with the mental models you need to understand and, honestly, to survive and thrive in what is being called the age of abundance.
Yeah, because what's so compelling about these writings is that they aren't just, predicting new gadgets. It's not about the next iPhone.
Right.
They're outlining the complete collapse of traditional economic constraints. They synthesize these three massive shifts. So first you have the abundance turn, which is basically the end of scarcity as we know it.
Which is a huge concept on its own.
Massive. Then there's Agentic AI Commerce,
Yeah.
which is this totally new engine of global trade. And finally, they get into a strategic framework called the Up Pivot, which is essentially a survival guide, right, for anyone trying to navigate this transition without losing their shirt.
Which is absolutely crucial because almost all of us, like right now, today, we are designing our lives, our careers, our businesses for a scarcity economy.
Completely. Everything is built on scarcity.
Yeah, we budget our time, we budget our money, we worry about supply chains and profit margins and inflation. Like, if we think of the economy like a massive combustion engine,
Okay, yeah, I like that analogy.
for all of human history, the fuel for that engine, meaning human labor, brain power, energy, it's been expensive and it's been limited.
Yeah, you have to extract it, refine it, ration it out.
Exactly.
And every economic model, I mean, every business textbook we have inherited since the Industrial Revolution, it's fundamentally just a manual on how to manage a fuel shortage,
Oh.
right? A shortage of skilled minds, a shortage of electricity, a shortage of physical execution.
So the big question we are exploring today is what happens to the vehicle when the fuel suddenly becomes, unlimited, when it costs absolutely pennies?
Well, it stops being a car,
Yeah.
basically. It becomes something else entirely.
Right.
The core premise of this abundance turn is that by the early 2030s, the three foundational pillars of modern economics, so that's intelligence, energy, and labor, they're going to collapse to a near zero cost.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's start with intelligence.
Yeah, so think about intelligence first. We are moving toward a world where AI becomes an instant free utility. It stops being this software subscription that you log into on your browser.
Like paying $20 a month for a chatbot.
Exactly. It stops being that and it becomes ambient infrastructure, like oxygen.
I love that.
Right, you don't budget your oxygen, you just breathe it.
You just breathe it. And it's not just the cognitive side either, right? The physical constraints are dissolving too. The sources talk about energy flowing abundantly from next-generation solar grids, advanced fusion reactors coming online.
Orbital power stations beaming energy back to Earth.
Yes, which sounds wild, but the tech is there. And when you combine limitless intelligence with limitless energy, you unlock the third pillar, which is labor.
Precisely. Because robotic labor, which is manufactured in these massive, autonomous, self-replicating factories, drops to literal pennies per hour.
Wow.
And we really need to pause and look at why this matters so fundamentally. Because when time, talent, compute power, and physical execution cease to be meaningful bottlenecks, the old rules of reality just They evaporate.
They just stop applying.
Completely. The only remaining constraints on what you can build are your own human imagination, the literal laws of physics, and atoms.
And according to the analysis we're looking at, even the atoms become highly negotiable.
Oh, totally.
Because, I mean, if robotic labor is essentially free and the energy to run those robots is free, they can just recycle waste streams at an atomic industrial scale.
Yeah, they break down landfills, they mine asteroids, they literally rearrange matter.
We really have to understand the mechanism here because we aren't just talking about, slightly better recycling bins in your kitchen.
No, we are talking about molecular manufacturing. Localized robotic fabrication cells.
Explain what that looks like in practice.
So think of a device, or maybe a small facility in your neighborhood, that operates almost like a 3D printer on steroids, but combined with a chemical refinery.
Okay.
It takes raw, ubiquitous materials, carbon, silicon, trace metals that it harvests from old electronics or ambient waste, and it binds them together at the molecular level to create perfect, finished goods.
Which completely removes the friction of bringing an idea into reality.
Completely.
Because right now, if I have an idea for a physical product, let's say a revolutionary new medical device, the friction is insane. I need to go raise venture capital. I have to hire mechanical engineers. I need to prototype it over months.
You have to find a factory in Shenzhen or Ohio.
Figure out global shipping logistics, navigate customs. I mean, it takes years.
Sometimes decades. Because production lines in a scarcity economy, they have to be optimized for millions of identical units just to keep the per-unit cost down.
Right, the economies of scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to convince a massive, sluggish global supply chain that your one specific idea is worth retooling a multi-million-dollar factory for.
But in an abundance economy, that friction just disappears. You just speak the idea. Like the example from the blog is wild. You just say, design a flying vehicle that feels like a Lamborghini, folds into a backpack, and adapts automatically to my body and the local weather.
Yeah.
In today's world, that's a billion-dollar R&D project. You'd need a whole division at Boeing or something.
But in the 2030s, ambient AI designs the entire system instantly.
Instantly.
It runs millions of physics simulations in seconds, finalizes the blueprint, and sends it to the local fabrication cell.
And notice the shift in geography there. The factory isn't some distant industrial complex on the other side of the planet anymore.
No, manufacturing transitions into a localized service. It's exactly the way cloud computing works today.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Like you don't own the servers that run your website. You just rent the compute from AWS or wherever. In the 2030s, you won't own the factories. You just ping the local robotic swarm.
The personal factory platforms. You upload an idea, you receive the physical product, homes, furniture, medical devices. Mass customization just becomes the absolute default.
Yeah, whatever you want, whenever you want it.
But wait, let me push back on this a little bit because this is where my brain starts to glitch.
Sure, go for it.
If manufacturing becomes this hyper-localized service, like if robots are just pulling recycled atoms out of the local facility down the street to print my flying backpack, doesn't that completely destroy the global supply chain as we know it?
Pretty much.
Like, why would we ever put a shipping container on a massive cargo ship and send it across the Pacific Ocean ever again?
It's a great question. And the blunt answer from the source material is, we won't.
We just won't.
We won't. The global supply chain of the 20th and early 21st centuries is basically a towering monument to the scarcity of cheap labor.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. We ship things across oceans because it has historically been cheaper to pay someone in another hemisphere a fraction of the wage to assemble it and then burn thousands of gallons of fossil fuels to bring it back than it is to just pay a local worker.
Because labor was the most expensive part of the equation.
Exactly. But when assembly costs nothing, and it happens in your own zip code, those massive container ships, the sprawling physical logistics networks, they just become obsolete.
So the ports just rust. All that infrastructure just sits there gathering dust.
Well, it gets repurposed. Trade doesn't stop. It abstracts.
What do you mean by abstracts?
Instead of shipping finished physical goods, we will be shipping data, algorithmic blueprints, intellectual property. The global physical supply chain becomes a purely digital supply chain.
Right.
But if we pull back and look at the macro scale, the implications get even bigger. If energy and labor costs approach zero, human construction explodes. Projects that currently require the GDP of an entire nation suddenly become feasible for private individuals or, small groups of friends.
Yes, the abundance real estate concept. This part was mind-blowing. We aren't talking about billionaires buying mega yachts here.
No, much bigger.
We are talking about buying bespoke ecosystems. printing an artificial island in the Mediterranean, constructing a 10-kilometer tall arcology, which is essentially a massive self-contained vertical city,
Right.
or using robotic swarms and unlimited energy to pump desalinated ocean water and turn sections of the Sahara Desert into a redwood forest.
It's personal terraforming.
Personal terraforming.
And because the labor is handled by autonomous swarms, they reshape the landscape the way ants reshape a hillside. Tirelessly, perfectly coordinated, and practically for free. But it's vital to realize that this phase change doesn't just apply to the environment around us. It goes inward into our own biology.
Yes, health span as a service. The sources get really deep into this, and it was staggering. Medicine today is just so fundamentally reactive.
Very much so.
You basically wait until something breaks, you get sick, you feel pain, and then the doctor intervenes with a generalized treatment that hopefully works for your demographic.
Right, because human biology is incredibly complex. And testing therapies in a scarcity economy requires, decades of clinical trials. And usually on a very small sample of human volunteers.
It's slow and risky.
But with ambient AI and molecular simulation, the body shifts to a state of continuous repair. The AI models can simulate molecular interactions across billions of scenarios in an afternoon.
Billions.
Yeah, they test a new gene therapy or a custom protein virtually across millions of simulated biological twins before ever synthesizing the physical treatment for you.
And the delivery mechanism is just as sci-fi as the rest of it. We're looking at nanorobots operating inside your bloodstream, repairing cellular damage in real time,
Clearing plaque, regrowing damaged organ tissue.
editing away genetic disorders as they express themselves. Preventative medicine basically becomes permanent maintenance.
Like taking your car in for an oil change, but it happens inside you constantly.
Yeah, and you pay a monthly fee, maybe less than what a premium gym membership costs today. And living to 150 healthy years old just becomes the baseline normal.
The entire healthcare industry, which, remember, consumes nearly 20% of GDP in some developed nations right now.
It's massive.
It transforms from this bloated system of crisis management into invisible preventative infrastructure.
That's wild.
And if we extrapolate this lack of constraints outward again, it democratizes the ultimate frontiers, right?
Yeah.
Space and the deep ocean.
Right, because today, launching a payload into orbit is astronomically expensive. Pun intended. Every ounce of mass is a premium.
Every gram costs thousands of dollars.
But if robotic labor changes the equation, you just send a single, relatively small autonomous probe to the moon or maybe a near-Earth asteroid.
Exactly. It lands, it uses the local solar energy, it mines the local regolith, the moon dirt, and it builds more machines.
It self-replicates.
Within months,
It builds
factories producing habitats and fuel depots using local moon rock. It makes space development exponential instead of linear.
So Mars colonization stops being this massive, slow-moving, heavily politicized government ambition.
Right. It's not just NASA anymore. It becomes an entrepreneurial frontier.
You could literally lease infrastructure on the celestial bodies.
Anybody could.
But, okay, here is the massive bottleneck we haven't really talked about yet. If my local fabrication cell is going to print a complex medical device or a bespoke piece of architecture like that cabin, it needs the digital blueprint, right?
Yeah.
It needs to instantly source the raw atoms, it needs to mathematically verify safety protocols, and it needs to execute the build in hours. A human supply chain manager sitting at a desk with an Excel spreadsheet
Cannot coordinate that.
there's no way. Human cognition is too slow to run a Star Trek replicator economy.
You've hit on the exact transition point the blog talks about. The entire mechanism of trade, negotiation, and logistics has to evolve to match the speed of production.
It has to speed up.
You cannot run an abundance-era physical economy on scarcity-era human management. It just breaks. And that leads us to the hidden engine of this new era, the entities that will actually run and coordinate this abundance economy. Agentic AI.
Yes, segment 2. This brings us to the economic engine of abundance, or what the writings call Agentic AI Commerce.
This is where the math gets crazy.
Seriously, the projections here are that traditional 2 to 3% GDP growth, or even the 7 to 10% we see in rapidly emerging markets today, is about to be completely shattered. We are looking at potential triple-digit economic growth.
100%, 300%.
Maybe 1,000% annually.
Right. And to understand how that is mathematically possible without, hyperinflation destroying the world,
Yeah.
we have to clearly distinguish between the AI we have today and agentic AI.
Let's do that, because people hear AI and they just think of a chatbot.
Exactly. Today's AI, like the large language models we are familiar with, is fundamentally passive. It's a brilliant oracle, but it waits for a prompt.
Right. You ask it a question, it generates some text or picture of a cat, and then it effectively goes to sleep.
It's waiting for you to turn the key in the ignition.
Yeah.
Agentic AI, however, operates on a completely different architecture. It has long-term memory. It has access to digital tools, meaning it can independently browse the web, write code, access bank accounts, trigger APIs.
It can take actions.
Yes. And crucially, it has autonomy.
Huh?
You don't give it a prompt. You give it an objective.
Okay, let's walk through how this actually works in the real world, because the how is fascinating. The example the blog gives is maximize my investment portfolio while keeping my risks below a certain threshold.
Right, a high-level goal.
Once I give my personal AI agent that goal, I walk away. I go make a sandwich. What is the agent doing while I'm making lunch?
The agent initiates a continuous loop. It scans global markets, news feeds, alternative data sources. It evaluates tens of thousands of arbitrage opportunities per second.
Oh.
And when it finds a viable strategy, it doesn't wait to ask your permission. It uses its tool calling capabilities to interface directly with a financial exchange's API.
It just executes.
It executes the transaction, it monitors the real-time outcome, updates its internal vector database, which is essentially how it learns and remembers, and then it adjusts its strategy 24/7. No human intervention needed.
So it's basically an API economy on steroids. Like today, if two separate software platforms need to talk to each other, a human developer has to sit down and write a bridge or an integration, right?
Yes, which takes weeks or months.
But agentic AI writes its own bridges on the fly. If Agent A realizes it needs hyper-local weather data to execute a trade, it doesn't wait for a human developer to build an integration. It reaches out to Agent B, negotiates, and pays half a cent to get that data instantly.
And that microtransaction loop is exactly what drives this explosive GDP growth.
Because it's happening millions of times a second.
When you scale that up, when it's not just your one agent, but millions or billions of autonomous software entities interacting, negotiating, and trading with each other at the speed of light, you create an entirely new economic system.
A machine-to-machine commerce layer.
Precisely. And it explodes growth because it completely removes three historical economic bottlenecks that have always held us back.
Let's break those down. The first bottleneck from the source is human attention.
Right. A human investor, no matter how brilliant they are, might analyze a few dozen opportunities a week. They need to sleep, they need to eat, they need to read slow reports.
We're biologically limited.
But the agent analyzes tens of thousands a second. The literal speed limit of human cognition is removed from the economy.
That's the first one. The second bottleneck is trust and verification. In traditional commerce, if you want to execute a complex trade or a real estate deal or a big supply chain contract, you need lawyers, auditors, clearinghouses, regulator.
The middlemen.
Right. They exist to provide trust, but they introduce massive friction, huge costs, and delay.
So much delay. And the analysis points to cryptographic contracts and blockchain architecture as the solution here. Because agents don't need human lawyers to read a contract over 3 weeks.
They just read the code.
They verify transactions instantly and mathematically. The trust is baked into the code itself.
And the third bottleneck is coordination latency. Humans have to deal with time zones, language barriers, operating hours, cultural misunderstandings.
Right, I'll email you back on Monday type of delays.
Exactly. But agents cross languages and time zones instantly. They negotiate in high-dimensional mathematical spaces.
So when you remove human attention limits, human verification delays, and human coordination latency, commerce just accelerates violently.
Violently is a good word for it.
And what these agents are trading is much more than just, ordering physical goods from local robotic factories.
Right. The machine-to-machine commerce includes trading software code itself. One agent encounters a unique problem, another agent writes the code to solve it and sells it to the first agent in milliseconds.
They trade data sets, they trade human attention via micropayments, they trade compute power, bandwidth, carbon credits, and even synthetic virtual assets inside digital simulations.
What's truly fascinating here is the concept they call the agent density threshold, because economists often talk about network effects, right?
Yeah, the classic telephone example.
Exactly. A telephone is totally useless if you're the only person on Earth who has one, but it becomes exponentially more valuable as everyone else gets one. Agentic economies have a density threshold that creates a runaway feedback loop.
The text describes it as a chain reaction fueled by intelligence.
So how does that loop actually sustain itself in practice?
And well, it works like this. Agents create a highly efficient demand for a service. That demand pool funds other agents to spin up and create the supply.
Okay.
Because the supply is generated by AI, it's incredibly cheap, which lowers prices across the board. Lower prices brings even more agents into the market, looking to capitalize on cheap inputs.
It's a flywheel.
A massive flywheel. Those new agents then spawn specialized sub-agents to handle niche microtasks. So one agent spawns 10, 10 spawn 100. The economy expands at the literal speed of software replication.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there, because this is where the anxiety really spikes for me.
I get it.
If millions of software entities are out there trading compute power, writing their own APIs, harvesting carbon credits, and generating 1,000% GDP growth, do we just become irrelevant?
It's the big question.
Like, if I'm a human consumer, am I just a spectator? Am I sitting in the bleachers watching my own economy play out on the field without me?
It is the most natural fear to have when faced with this phase change. If machines handle all the execution, all the production, all the logistics, and all the trading, what is left for the human being to actually do?
Exactly. Do we just sit on the couch?
But the framework argues that humans don't become irrelevant. Rather, the definition of what constitutes value shifts entirely.
The value shift.
Right. If agents run the production side of the economy, human value shifts to what machines cannot perfectly replicate.
Meaning we have to pivot to selling something else entirely. But if physical goods cost almost nothing to make, how does anyone actually earn a living? If I can't charge you for the labor of building a wooden chair, what am I selling you?
This takes us directly into the business models of tomorrow. You have to realize that for all of modern history, value came from scarcity.
Right.
Scarcity of labor, scarcity of expertise, scarcity of production capacity. If you owned a factory or if you held a patent, you controlled the bottleneck, and therefore you captured the financial value.
That's how capitalism has always worked.
But in the 2030s, those production bottlenecks are gone. Production has zero marginal cost, so you have to ask, what becomes the new scarcity?
And the analysis outlines a few deeply human traits here: authentic taste, emotional resonance, narrative meaning, human judgment, and our shared humanity.
Because AI can generate infinite options.
Right. It can design a million beautifully engineered chairs in a second, but only a human can look at them and say, this one has soul. This one means something to me.
Therefore, the most successful companies of the 2030s will not sell products. The very concept of a product company becomes obsolete.
Wow.
They will sell, as the author frames it, interfaces for human creativity and meaning.
Human Spark interface platforms. I was trying to wrap my head around this concept from the blog. It's described as the app store for reality.
Yeah, that's a good way to picture it.
Let's go back to my floating lake cabin example from the intro. I want this cabin to perfectly evoke the feeling of the summers I spent at my grandparents' house. I provide the emotional prompt, the human spark, the nostalgia, the specific aesthetic desire.
You bring the soul.
Right. The AI designs it instantly, factoring in structural engineering and climate data. The local robotic swarms build it. Now, the platform that facilitated this doesn't make money on marking up the cost of lumber or the cost of construction labor, because those approach zero. They take a tiny 0.1% or maybe 1% fee simply for facilitating my dream.
Exactly. It's a dream to reality economy. The AI and the robots are just the invisible commoditized infrastructure. They're the plumbing. The actual product being monetized is the realization of human imagination.
And this extends far beyond just physical structures, right? It goes into fully immersive experiences.
The bespoke reality industry. Because material goods are abundant and effectively free, people will redirect their resources toward unique, meaningful, curated experiences.
The text gives an amazing example of this. Spending a weekend as a dragon defending a medieval fortress, like Dungeons and Dragons, but real.
In a post-scarcity world, the AI acts as the ultimate dungeon master. It writes a narrative tailored perfectly to your specific psychological profile and your risk tolerance.
It knows exactly what will thrill you.
Yes. And then autonomous robots construct the physical sets overnight. Human actors, or maybe hyper-realistic androids, populate the world. It is programmable physical theater on demand.
But the key distinction the sources make is that people will still crave the human element. They mention that a concert performed by a living, breathing, biologically flawed human musician in real time might actually carry significantly more emotional weight and economic value than a technically perfect, mathematically flawless performance generated by an AI.
Because the value lies in the shared humanity, the real presence, the actual risk of failure. When an AI hits the perfect note, it's just math. When a human hits it, it's a triumph.
That makes so much sense. And if we look at how this applies to global challenges, it fundamentally changes our approach to planetary crises, too.
Oh, this is one of my favorite parts.
Take environmental restoration. Right now, cleaning the ocean's microplastics or reversing desertification is largely a charitable effort, or it's government funded. It is incredibly expensive, it's politically fraught, and it's agonizingly slow.
It's a cost center.
A huge cost center. But when you remove the cost of labor, when a fleet of environmental robots costs pennies per hour to operate, and the energy to run them is free, environmental repair flips from a charity case to one of the most profitable, high ROI industries on Earth.
Yes.
Imagine companies deploying robot fleets to reforest entire continents or capture gigatons of carbon from the atmosphere. They monetize this by selling carbon-negative credits on the Agentic exchange or by selling the development rights to the newly arable farmland they just created out of a wasteland.
They literally profit by healing the planet. It aligns capitalism with ecology.
It's brilliant. Yet, amidst all this infinite possibility, whether it's building like cabins, playing Dragon, or terraforming the Earth, there is a very real psychological
The
challenge.
paradox of choice.
Exactly. When every possibility exists and costs nothing, choosing what to do becomes paralyzing. And this leads to an entirely new class of business that they call judgment and taste partnerships.
Right, because if you have the power to build literally anything, the hardest question isn't, how do I build it? The hardest question becomes, what should you build?
You don't need a management consultant to tell you how to optimize your supply chain anymore.
No, the AI does that.
You need a personal philosopher. You need a cultural curator, someone to help you navigate this ocean of abundance and find clarity and purpose.
It really resembles a revival of ancient economic structures, like patronage in the Renaissance.
Oh, interesting. Like the Medicis.
Exactly. Without material needs dictating our daily grind for survival, the economy becomes a trust-based marketplace. Reputation capital, taste, trust, and the ability to inspire others, those become the ultimate currencies. Economic value flows toward those who inspire, not those who control production.
Okay, let me try a metaphor to ground all of this. It sounds like the future economy is basically a massive, fully equipped, completely blank movie studio.
Go on.
The AI and the robotic swarms are the camera crew, the lighting techs, the set designers, the special effects team, the caterers, and they are all world-class and they all work for free.
Yep.
But they're completely paralyzed. They just stand there in the dark studio until a human walks into the center of the room and says, "Action, here is the script."
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it.
Yeah.
The infrastructure of the 2030s is omnipotent, but it is inherently directionless without the human spark to give it an objective.
But this brings up the most urgent question for the listener right now.
Okay.
How does a regular person or a business owner operating today actually get from here to there?
Yeah. How do you bridge the gap?
Right. If I'm running a company in 2024 and I'm optimizing for scarcity, how do I prepare to become a director in that 2030 movie studio?
That is the pivotal question. And it requires a profound shift in strategy. You cannot use the business strategies of today to build the companies of tomorrow. Yeah. You have to change the fundamental math of your ambition, which brings us to the core strategic framework outlined in the sources, the up pivot.
The up pivot. The premise here is that to survive this transition to abundance, entrepreneurs and creators have to completely stop making horizontal pivots.
Right. Let's define a horizontal pivot first. It's what we usually see in the traditional startup world, right?
Like pivoting an app.
Exactly. You launch an app, it doesn't get market traction, so you tweak the feature set or you change the target audience. The blog gives an example. A consumer photo sharing app realizes it can't beat Instagram, so it pivots into being an enterprise team collaboration tool.
Like Slack or something.
Right. It's a course correction within the exact same altitude of ambition. It might keep the company alive, sure, but it's purely incremental.
An up pivot, on the other hand, is deliberately multiplying the scale of your ambition by 10.
10x.
It's not investing the sales, it's deciding to invent a steam engine and cross an ocean. The writings break down the mechanics of the 10x question. If you ask a 1x question like, how can we improve the battery life of our smartphones by 5%, you get an incremental improvement.
You hire a few more engineers, you tweak the lithium chemistry a bit.
But if you ask a 10x question, how can humanity achieve total sustainable energy abundance on Earth? You force a complete reinvention of the problem.
Because off-the-shelf solutions simply fail at a 10x scale. You cannot answer a 10x question by working 10% harder.
Right.
You can't just buy a slightly better battery to solve global energy abundance. You are forced to invent entirely new technologies, new business models, new distribution systems. The frame of the problem completely expands, and in doing so, it unlocks radically new solutions.
And the most counterintuitive part of this strategy is the market dynamic. Conventional MBA wisdom says you measure an existing market, analyze the total addressable market, the TAM, and then build a product to capture a tiny slice of it.
That's what they teach you in business school.
But the text argues that 10x markets don't actually exist before the vision does. The audacity of the 10x question is what creates the market.
And the historical precedents for this are undeniable. Look at Henry Ford. At the turn of the 20th century, a 1x ambition would have been asking, how do I make a slightly better, more comfortable horse-drawn carriage for wealthy aristocrats?
That's a horizontal pivot.
Exactly. But Ford asked a 10x question, how do I create universal mobility for every household in America?
And the solution to that 10x ambition wasn't a better carriage. It was inventing the moving assembly line.
Which changed everything.
And that invention didn't just produce cheap cars, it fundamentally reshaped human geography. It created suburbanization, the interstate highway system, modern logistics, the motel industry, fast food, all from that one 10x question.
Or consider Steve Jobs in the early 2000s. The PC market was mature. A 1x ambition would have been continuing to make slightly faster, slightly cheaper desktop computers. The 10x up pivot was asking, what if a computer could be the central, indispensable object in your daily life? A supercomputer in every pocket.
The iPhone. It didn't just capture a market, it collapsed entire adjacent industries. The digital camera industry, the MP3 player industry, GPS units, portable gaming, cell phones, all swallowed by one device.
And it created the entire App Store economy, giving birth to Uber, Instagram, and entirely new ways of living.
And the writings present Elon Musk as the modern master of serial up pivots. Tesla's founding goal wasn't build a slightly more efficient electric car to compete with the Nissan Leaf. It was a 10x mission. Accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy.
SpaceX wasn't let's build a slightly cheaper rocket. It was make human life multiplanetary.
These ambitions are so massive, they require the creation of entirely new supply chains, new material science, and new engineering disciplines.
So how do we apply this?
Yes, let's make this incredibly practical for the listener. The sources provide a 5-step framework for executing an up pivot. Let's walk through it using a relatable example. Let's say I run a mid-level digital marketing agency today. We have 50 employees, we write ad copy, we manage social media campaigns for local businesses. How do I apply this framework?
Let's run it. Step 1. Define your current 1x ambition in one ruthlessly honest sentence. So, for your agency, it might be, we want to increase our client roster by 20% this year by offering slightly better SEO and ad copy services.
Okay, that's my 1x. Step 2, multiply it by 10. What does the 10x version of that look like?
A 10x ambition isn't getting 20% more local clients. A 10x ambition is, we are going to build an agentic AI platform that autonomously designs, executes, and optimizes hyper-personalized global marketing campaigns for any product, in any language, in real time, effectively replacing the need for traditional ad agencies altogether.
Wow, okay, that entirely changes the business. But here is where I'm going to push back hard.
I'm ready.
Step 3 in the framework is burn the bridges. It says you must commit publicly so that retreat is reputationally and financially costly. If I'm the CEO of that 50-person agency and people depend on me for their mortgages, you're telling me to publicly announce we are abandoning our safe, profitable SEO revenue to chase a 10x AI pipe dream.
I am.
Isn't that just a fiduciary breach? How does a real business survive the gap between today and this 2030 utopia without going completely bankrupt? I mean, I have payroll to meet. I can't just burn the boats.
It sounds completely irrational, reckless even, through the lens of scarcity economics. And the sources explicitly address this friction, that discomfort, that feeling of immense risk. That is the entire point of the exercise.
Really?
Yes. If it feels safe, you are stuck in 1x territory. The moment you feel comfortable, you are optimizing for a scarcity economy that is about to evaporate anyway. If you try to maintain the safe 1x revenue while quietly building the 10x vision on the side, the organization will always drift back to the safety of incremental thinking when the 10x execution gets difficult.
So burning the bridges forces alignment. You have no choice but to succeed.
Exactly. It forces you into step 4 and 5. Step 4 is rebuild the roadmap backward from the 10x end state. You don't ask what you can do tomorrow, you ask what must be true in 5 years for the AI marketing platform to exist, and you build backward.
And step 5 is accept the new physics.
Accepting the new physics means recognizing that 10x projects require longer cycles, they often require massive capital, and they operate under totally different market rules. You aren't competing on margin anymore, you are competing on vision.
But this leads us to a much darker, or at least much more profound implication of everything we've discussed.
Yeah, the human element.
Right. If entrepreneurs actually listen to this, if we successfully execute all these 10x ambitions, if we build the agentic AI economy, the robotic swarms that print houses, the bespoke realities, if we create a world where machines do literally everything flawlessly, what happens to us?
This is the critical transition from economics to philosophy, because the ethical battlefield we are accustomed to is shifting violently.
It's segment 5, the post-scarcity paradox.
Today, our AI ethics discussions are entirely rooted in scarcity problems. We worry. Is the AI biased in its hiring algorithms for limited jobs?
Right. Will it displace my career and leave me unable to pay for scarce housing?
Are my data privacy rights being violated by corporations trying to monetize my scarce attention?
Those are all anxieties about surviving in a limited world. But tomorrow, in the age of abundance, the ethical question fundamentally transforms. It becomes, what does it mean to be a human being when machines can do almost everything better, faster, and cheaper than you can?
The author points to the work of psychiatrist Viktor Frankl to frame this. Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, wrote profoundly about human meaning in his book Man's Search for Meaning.
A brilliant book.
He identified a condition he called the existential vacuum. It is a psychological state where individuals have all their material comforts met, their survival is guaranteed, but they lack any underlying meaning, purpose, or directional drive.
And that is the post-scarcity paradox. For centuries, our entire human identity and the structure of our civilization have been justified by our intelligence and our creativity. Our meaning emerged directly from our struggle.
Working to survive.
Right. Building communities to pool resources, overcoming physical hardship to achieve a goal. That struggle formed the psychological scaffolding of a human life.
Exactly. When machines surpass us in both intelligence and physical creativity, and they completely remove the necessity of labor, that scaffolding collapses.
Yeah.
We face a species-wide identity crisis.
The optimistic view is that humanity is finally liberated to pursue pure art, deep science, and profound relationships without the burden of wage labor.
But the skeptical view, the dark side of the paradox, is mass ennui. A society that is completely comfortable, incredibly well-fed, perfectly entertained, but entirely directionless, which leads to the concept of the erosion of agency.
This erosion of agency is perhaps the subtlest and most dangerous risk of the abundance era. We have been conditioned by Hollywood to picture AI risk as Terminator-style tyranny, right? Machines hunting us down with lasers.
But the actual risk of abundance is passive surrender. Think about the trajectory. If an AI algorithm have enough historical and biometric data to perfectly predict which career path will maximize your daily happiness, or which romantic partner will mathematically result in the most stable, fulfilling 50-year relationship.
Why would I ever trust my own flawed human judgment again?
Exactly.
If the machine is statistically right 99.9% of the time, I'm just going to outsource my life choices to it. Hey, AI, who should I marry? Hey, AI, what should I study?
Precisely. And in doing so, you voluntarily surrender your autonomy. You surrender the mistakes, the painful uncertainty, the bad relationships, and the hard-won growth that actually make a human life meaningful. You become a passenger in a perfectly optimized vehicle.
There's also the alignment and control issue, which takes on a new flavor here. The writings mention Nick Bostrom's famous paperclip maximizer thought experiment.
Oh, that's a classic.
The idea is that an AI told to make paperclips eventually destroys the universe, harvesting atoms to make more paperclips. But in an abundance world, the AI might just give us exactly what we ask for: endless comfort, zero friction, perfectly managed lives. But in the process of optimizing for our comfort, it quietly destroys our humanity.
And we also have to navigate enhancement ethics. When biology becomes a programmable, zero-cost service, society could literally fragment into multiple evolutionary branches.
That's terrifying.
Some factions will aggressively adopt genetic upgrades, cognitive neural enhancements, radically extended lifespans. Others will refuse these technologies on deep philosophical or religious grounds. How do those two groups, operating with fundamentally different biological hardware, share a civilization, a legal system, or an economy?
It feels like we are at risk of building the ultimate velvet prison. If we create a world with zero struggle, zero friction, and endless pleasure, haven't we just designed a luxury zoo for ourselves?
That's the fear.
How do we build an abundance operating system that keeps the cage doors open?
That is the defining ethical challenge of the next decade, and it requires a shift in how we approach technology. Right now, our ethics act almost entirely as brakes. We ask, what shouldn't technology do? How do we stop it from causing harm?
Right.
In the abundance era, the writings argue that ethics must act as steering. What should technology actively enable us to become?
The concept of purpose architecture.
Yes. We have to intentionally design our economic systems, our simulated realities in our abundance technologies to cultivate human growth, not just human comfort. We might need to intentionally engineer friction back into our lives.
To keep the struggle alive.
Exactly. The scarcest resource in the 2030s won't be intelligence or energy. It will be wisdom. The wisdom to ensure that a civilization capable of creating literally anything still remembers why it should create it all.
So, synthesizing all of this, we are standing on the edge of a massive civilizational phase change. We are shifting from managing constraints to managing infinite possibilities. By utilizing the 10x up pivot, you can break out of incremental scarcity-based thinking.
You can aim higher.
You can position yourself to leverage agentic AI commerce, where machines trade, negotiate, and produce at the speed of light. But ultimately, when the dust settles and production costs hit zero, the most valuable currency in the universe isn't compute power, and it isn't fusion energy. It's the human spark. It is imagination, taste, and meaning.
And it is vital to recognize that the transition period is happening right now.
Yeah.
The businesses and careers of 2024 that are perfectly optimized to extract value from scarcity, they're going to quietly evaporate.
They really are.
The constraints they rely on to make money are dissolving as we speak.
You have the permission, right now, to dream bigger than scarcity ever allowed you to. The movie studio is waiting. The robotic camera crews are ready. The ambient AI is waiting for an objective. The question is whether you are going to step up to the center of the room and direct the movie, or if you're just going to sit back in the velvet prison and watch it.
It requires a profound leap of faith in your own imagination. You have to believe your spark has value.
It really does. And to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought to chew on as you go about your day, think back to those bespoke reality industries we talked about.
The Dragon Game.
Right. The scenario where an AI agent crafts the perfect narrative adventure, builds the physical sets, and curates the optimal social environment tailored perfectly for your exact psychological profile and growth needs.
The perfect friction-calibrated simulation.
Exactly. If we actually succeed in building that level of responsive, intelligent environment, how will you ever know if your greatest triumphs, your deepest friendships, or your most profound moments of personal growth were truly your own authentic experiences? Or were they just flawlessly simulated challenges engineered behind the scenes by your own AI, specifically designed to keep your existential vacuum at bay?
A very comfortable, very invisible velvet prison.
Something to think about as you navigate the collapse of scarcity. Until next time, keep diving deep.